super fun, and all about artisan cheese and more to melt your peaceful heart and toast your peaceful life. Coming to you from the Appalachian Mountains of southwestern Virginia, this is the Peaceful Heart FarmCast.
Hey, this is Scott Hall from Peaceful Heart Farm, and you are listening to the Peaceful Heart FarmCast.
Hello, everybody. Melanie Hall here. Hope you are doing very, very well. The conversation today and every day revolves around the value of tradition, traditional homestead living, traditional raw milk products, and artisan cheese. Topics discussed here are designed to create new perspectives and possibilities for how you might add the taste of tradition to your life. Our raw milk cheese creamery was the center of the day today for quite a few hours. The construction is moving along nicely, but today our state inspectors made an appearance and helped us out with details on safety measures. And we work with them every step of the way to make sure all safety concerns are addressed. It's an important topic. I want to take a minute and say welcome to all the new listeners. Welcome back to the veteran homestead-loving regulars who stop by the FarmCast for every episode. I appreciate you all so much. And I'm so excited to share with you what's going on at the farm this week. Winter animal care was high priority. Let's talk about that before we get into the details of our lovely raw milk cheese creamery project. We check up on the animals regularly. Some we can easily see in the front fields. Anytime we can see them from the house, and then anytime that we go out the driveway, we can see them. So out there, there's 2 bulls, 2 donkeys, and the 4 ewes and the breeding ram are all out in the front, and we can see those easily. But the others are all out there in the back fields, and it takes a bit more effort to check up on them. But rest assured, they are not out of sight, out of mind. I'll start with the cows. Our beautiful Normandy cows are the centerpiece of our farmstead raw milk cheese creamery. And it is our habit to check on them first. Again, it's that centerpiece, so that's what we think of first. And I say first, but they're all out there together, and while we may be aiming at the cows, sometimes it's the sheep or the goats that we encounter first, and many times it is the donkeys. More on that later. There are 5 big girls in our current herd. I say big girls because these 5 have already had a calf. We do have a 6th in that herd. We have our newest arrival, Rosie, who is still known as a heifer, and that means she has never had a calf. Technically, she's a bred heifer. She has never had a calf, but is currently pregnant. She's in a pasture with the younger calves, and so we can keep a close eye on her as her pregnancy progresses. So next year, she'll be one of the big girls in the herd, and we'll be up to 6 at that point. Anyway, of the 5 big girls, 4 are pregnant. Everyone looks healthy and happy. Claire barely looked up as I approached. She was far too busy eating grass to give me much notice. Violet always looks up whenever we come near. She wants attention, yet she doesn't want attention when you walk up to her. I guess what she really wants is a treat. But they don't get treats in the winter, only during lactation. So she will have to wait until March or early April to get any more of those treats. Butter is quite open to petting, while Buttercup avoids it at all costs. And Cloud, she's had her hooves repaired, but she's still quite standoffish when out in the field. All of them are easy to get close to when they are up in the milking shed. Funny how that goes. But we do take good care of them and like to spend time with them. They were out there grazing on grass, and the grass in those back fields is holding up very well. They're literally still eating green grass, and it's coming on close to mid-December. Scott believes they will not need hay until late February. I can't tell you how great that is for a couple of reasons. The cost, of course, is always the first concern in my mind. I do all of the accounting, and cost is always on my mind. But then the next great thing is that the green grass is always going to be better nutrition. And so the longer we can keep the animals on that, they're going to get some really good, preferable nutrition. they truly prefer grass to hay. We want to keep them on green grass for as long as possible, and ideally we would be able to graze them all the way through the winter until the spring grass appears late March, early April, about the time they're calving. And actually that's a goal we'll likely not meet for many years. We would need additional pasture to make that happen. This is the farthest we've ever gotten, where Scott is saying late February, but we're still going to come up more than a month short, and we'll need to put hay out there. We're on our path to grow our herd as well, so next year probably even less grass, because the more cows you have eating the grass, anyway, you know the drill. So if we double our herd size, having green grass available to them for the entire winter is really a long shot without clearing some of our wooded areas and turning them into pasture. Now that's a huge job for a distant future. They do fine on hay. It's just similar to having a burger and fries when you really want a nice traditional home-cooked dinner. Sure, the burger and fries will keep you fed, but the real treat is that homemade roast leg of lamb with macaroni and cheese on the side. Throw in some Crowder peas, and it is a meal to be savored. And speaking of savoring a good meal, the sheep will continue to eat as much of that savory grass as they can scrounge. When the pickings get slim, the cows will rush to the hay as Scott brings it into the pasture. However, even when they have hay available, the sheep are going to go for every little bit of grass they can find. Now, they'll eventually go eat the hay, and shortly thereafter, they are right back out there grazing on little tiny bits of grass. One of the regular exercises that we do when checking on the animals is counting them, especially the sheep. We don't really count the cows. They're all grazing quietly in the field. We simply identify them by name. There's Cloud, there's Butter, there's Buttercup, and so on. But the sheep can be a little trickier. They hang out in a bunch, and they move together almost as one unit. So trying to pick out individual animals and count them is nearly impossible. One method that works well is for Scott to kind of go around, walk toward them from one side, and I'm going to hang out opposite from him on the other side of them. And and then he'll walk up to them, and as they move away from him, they'll kind of string out just a little bit, and I can more easily get an accurate count. Now, because they can see me, they walk or trot in my direction much more slowly. They're not going to run away from him. So I can get that accurate count. Now, eventually they make a turn away from both of us, and then they bunch up again and run off. So I got to be quick with the count. And it's important that we count regularly and make sure they are all there. If a predator starts picking them off, that predator will continue one by one until we intervene in some way. Once they've found where food is, they keep coming back. So we have to be vigilant in protecting the sheep. We accounted for all 12 that are in the flock with the big cowgirls, and that includes 3 younger girls from spring a year ago and all 9 lambs from this past spring. So there's 12 of those guys. Now, as far as the goats, well, there's no goat counting, at least not nearly as often. There's little we can do to protect them that they cannot do for themselves, so I don't keep quite as close a watch on them. Goats are quite different from sheep in their herding behaviors. For one thing, they can go places sheep wouldn't dare. A case in point, they were all in a different field than the cows and sheep. How did they get over there? We don't know. It seems that no matter which field that everyone else is currently occupying, the goats find a way to get into the next field. And another disadvantage to trying to count them easily is that they mill around much more randomly than sheep, who kind of cluster together. Now, the goats do cluster together, but it's a much larger circle, and they'll cluster together 2, 3, 4 in a group in 2 or 3 different places. And the space separating each animal even is quite a bit larger usually. And then when they see somebody approaching, they all get up and they start moving about in varying directions. They're kind of milling around in these small groups. And eventually then one kind of takes the lead and start to move in a particular direction away from the herd, and they'll all kind of go along with that. They'll move along with them. sort of. Again, it's a little different than sheep, as they will be farther apart, and then they'll bunch up, and then they'll spread out again with one or two moving kind of in random directions. They don't just follow that one lead. It's kind of like they're trying to do a goat head fake, trying to fool you into thinking that they're going to run in a different direction from the rest of the herd. So one or two of them will kind of break off and look like they're going to run in another direction. And lots of time it actually is not fake. And they bolt in a direction, taking sometimes a third to a half of the herd with them. Or maybe sometimes it's just one or two. But anyway, they split up into 2-3 groups, and then they rally back together after they run past you because they know you can't chase them all at once. So once they split up, they'll just run right past you, and then they group back together. And this is what I'm talking about when I refer to their self-protection against predators. They go in so many directions, it's harder to catch them. It's also harder to count them. Their speed and agility are phenomenal, so they have that kind of self-protection as well. Today, when they saw us approaching, they immediately moved into the woods, not running away in particular, because we weren't even over there in that pasture, but they're just moving out of sight into the cover of trees. So that's a signal that these beauties are going to make you work hard for a head count. Maybe we'll get them counted next time. While we were checking on everyone, the donkeys came up for a cuddle and to say hi. Anytime they see us, they're going to come up and try to get some attention. They have their fuzzy coats on for the winter, and they look so sweet. Just about every day they wander up to the milking shed and they bray at us, and they're ee-aw, ee-aw, loud noises that they make, different sounds that they make for different things. Mostly they're braying at Scott while he's out there working on the building next to them. Have I mentioned how people-friendly donkeys are? According to what I've read, they are even more personable than horses, and I can believe it. They followed me around while we were checking on the other animals, and Daisy likes to come up behind me when I stop and give me a little shove with her head, just a little notice that, hey, I'm here, give me some loving. And one of the greatest things is that, so Daisy stops and she gets her loving, and then Coco comes up kind of behind her, around beside her, and she puts her head across Daisy's back, trying to get close enough for a nice nose rub. But she keeps her mom between us and just puts her muzzle over her back, and it's really cute. Now after that, she'll come around, she'll get a more proper petting. What would we do without our donkeys to brighten the day? All right, so that's all for my animal updates. I didn't give an update on our raw milk Creamery last time, and lots has happened. There are special panels that were planned for the milking parlor and in the cheese make room. These panels are specifically chosen because they can be cleaned easily. The material and the surface is smooth. The material is some kind of plastic something, I think. Anyway, that work is currently in progress. Scott started with the milking parlor. The special panels are they're smooth white panels, and they're glued to the wall. And it was a little tricky getting them to the glue to stick strongly enough so that giving the glue time enough to set up in the cooler weather. In fact, they never did stick completely, and he had propped them up and braced them and all kinds of things, trying to get them to stick to the wall. So anyway, Plan B had to put into action. Scott found appropriate screws to hold the panels in place. And so far, so good with that plan. And the milking parlor is now done. There was a small run just under the ledge where the cows, there's a ledge where the cows stand in front of us. And along that ledge and underneath it in front of us, there was a little run there. And then there's a larger bit of paneling along the wall in front of the cows. So basically the panels are in front and beneath the cows. That's where the biggest mess is. So on to the cheese make room and more challenges. The cheese make room is designed to be cleaned easily, especially cleaned easily and efficiently. And these panels run from the floor to the ceiling all the way around the room in that cheese make room. And I'm impressed with them. Cleanup before, during, and after cheese making is an important, necessary, and time-consuming effort. And these panels are going to be excellent for helping me out with keeping the room immaculate in the least amount of time. Now, part of the challenge with getting the glue to stick relates to the ambient temperature and the temperature of the walls themselves. These are concrete walls. So even though screws have been added to the mix, they're really only there to hold it up against the wall until the glue can set. The panels are screwed into the wall just around the edges. So the center, there's no screws in the center of it. And these are like 5x8 panels, I think, something like that. So the center is held against the wall with glue only. And a few days ago, the temperature quite strongly took a downward turn, and additional techniques had to be employed to get the cheese make room warm enough to keep going with construction, at least in the afternoon. I mean, it's always something, right? You're trying to move forward and whatever, something happens. So this time it's winter. It's late fall. And so the temperatures are starting to drop. Now, we have a couple of small space heaters that we use during our time living in a camper in South Carolina. Go to our About Us page if you want to learn about our long journey to get to where we are today. I also have a podcast on that as well. So the space heaters had to be dug out. One was already in use in the small cheese room to keep the temperature up to the proper level in there. Scott tried to use the other one in the cheese make room. It's a lesser unit. So he's trying to use it to heat up that cheese make room, the walls especially. And he's got heavy plastic tacked up on the ceiling beams to hold in some of the heat. And just even that, having to go in there and put this plastic up on the ceiling, imagine just the extra time that he does for every one of these little bits of unplanned construction. So he added the heater, but it wasn't really strong enough to do the job. And the cheese make room is quite large, but the cheese cave is much, much smaller than the cheese make room. So the remedy for that was exchanging the radiant heater, the good solid radiant heater that we have, out of the cheese cave and put into the cheese cave the other lesser, weaker heater. That's a smaller place, so the weaker heater is good. So it's adequate for the job, although the target temperature fluctuates a lot more, where with the radiant and with the air conditioning unit that we have to keep it cool in the summertime, it really holds it between just 1, 2, 3 degrees. And with this it's now wavering 4 and 5 degrees on the temperature. Anyway, but it's still adequate. And the radiant heater worked well enough when we moved it to the cheese make room so it can keep the temperature up to 50 degrees or so. And so that allows work to progress quite nicely on the walls in there. And Scott's working on that right now. Now moving on to stairways. There will be 2 very long stairways from the ground to the attics. And attic space is already in use above the creamery, and then there's a half stair up to the attic above the milking parlor. We don't have anything up there right now. But there's an outside door to each of these 2 areas. And what's missing is an easy way to get into those doors. Temporary methods using the tractor to lift a pallet full of stuff or simply climbing a ladder with your arms full, these are inadequate. Scott is working hard to get those stairs designed in between waiting for the cheese make room to be warm enough in which to work. So he's doing the paperwork on that, taking all the measurements and making sure it's all going to fit and everything. Yay, I'll be glad when the stairs are done. I sent lots of stuff up there for storage. It's stuff that I use. Maybe it's seasonally. Maybe I use it, but just not that often. And so a lot of equipment and stuff. So being able to just climb the stairs to get it back will be great. And then, of course, once I'm done using it, back up the stairs, put it right back into storage. No more having to climb ladders, wait till Scott can get the tractor ready to put things up and down. So I've got lots of herd chair jars and canning equipment, and the dehydrator just made the trip back down. It's going to go back up in a few days. The stairs are going to be great. The roof is another huge step forward that happened recently. So the ordering for the materials has been completed. At least that's my understanding. That was a big deal. Many, many hours went into the estimates, and then many hours working with the sales people to make sure that we have all the pieces that are needed to do the job. All of these are custom cut lengths. And of course, it's going to cost a lot more than I expected. But in the end, you just pay it and move on. You got to have a roof, and the roof area for this project is huge. So take a look at some of the photos and videos on our Facebook page, and there'll be much more to report on that coming up soon in future podcasts. The materials are ordered but have not yet arrived, and so that's going to be a fantastic project that you'll be able to see the progress on that with pictures on Facebook. Now, the last bit of info I want to share about the progress of the Creamery is the visit from our local VDAX inspectors. VDAX is the Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. It's the state version, the Virginia state version of the USDA. So we have a great guy that we've been working with for quite a few years, beginning long before the first tree was cleared from the land, when everything was just still on paper and the ideas were being discussed. Now, for this visit, he brought along another inspector that will likely take over our facility inspections should he retire. She works in neighboring counties, so she'll just add us onto her list. Now, she had been to our farm a couple of years ago, just learning more about the cheese inspections, and it was great seeing her again. Both of these people offer lots of pertinent information to keep us out of trouble. We work together to spot areas where contamination might occur and how we might avoid the situation. So new procedures, additional pieces of equipment, altering workflow, all kinds of things like that are discussed. How to record things, even recording the acidity of the foot baths that you have when you walk into the cheese make room or into one of the cheese caves. Your feet go into this disinfectant solution, and so you literally have to measure the pH of that to make sure that it's high enough that it's actually working to sanitize your boots as you go into the cheese make room or the cheese cave. So there's so many details that go into the inspections, and we're getting closer and closer to completing this project and becoming a fully inspected USDA facility. At that point, we will be ready to start selling our cheese to the local restaurants and wineries, as well as to all of you fine people. And our dream gets closer every day, every moment. It was a great visit with them today. Quite a few hours spent discussing every aspect of our cheese operation with our secondary backup dairy inspector. Now that's about all I'm going to cover in today's podcast. A brief trip around the homestead with updates on the animals and bringing you up to date on our progress with the Creamery. I know I didn't talk about the quail. I'm figuring out how to pickle quail eggs, and I'll wait till next time to give you details on that. There are 5 different flavor recipes I'm trying out, and this was quite a project to figure out how to do pickled quail eggs. So Christmas is approaching fast, and I hope you're enjoying the season. We don't celebrate like the commercial Christmas. It's been many years since I had a tree or a wreath or lights or anything. Sometimes I think about it, but the effort to make it happen does not fit into my schedule. My children are long grown. My youngest grandchild's now 16, and from my perspective, that was always about the kids anyway. So how about a nice nativity scene? I can go with making that happen, I think. Our family visits during these holiday times happen mostly over Thanksgiving, so Scott and I generally celebrate the birth of our Lord with just the two of us. And there are a few other family members that we may visit sometime after the 25th. Who knows? Maybe a little bit before. Anyway, who knows who might pop in also to see us. We shall see. It's always great to get together with those we love, and Christmas provides the time off from work for others, making it easy for us to catch up with them at home or them to, come and visit us, and they're unburdened by work. They have more time to spend with us. So I do hope to work in a short visit or two between now and New Year's Day with some of those guys. Once again, I want to thank you for listening to me ramble on about our traditional raw milk cheese and traditional homestead living, and I hope all your dreams come true as well. If you enjoyed this podcast, please hop over to Apple Podcast or whatever podcasting service you use. Subscribe, give me a 5-star rating and a review. If you really like this content and want to really help out the show, the absolute best way you can do that is to share it with any friends or family who might be interested in this type of content. Share it on all your social media platforms. Let others know about the Peaceful Heart FarmCast. And thank you so much for stopping by the homestead. And until next time, may God fill your life with grace and peace.